On today's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, Justin and I are going to talk about some cryptic tweets and some interesting images on social media about a certain wide receiver and a certain defensive tackle, and then we're going to talk about some recent transactions on the second wave of free agency. Stick around.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your host, Justin Goddard.
Welcome in, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. He is Justin Goddard at jgods22, and I am Andrew Chang. You can find me at 2Changs, and we are the Wandering Buffalo podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Weather's finally, hopefully, starting to break here. Got a little bit of sunshine. Little bit of a slowdown in free agency, so I feel like I can stop staying up all hours of the night waiting for Brandon Beane to make a move. You know, Beane after dark doesn't.
Beane after dark, yes. I was hoping you were going to say that.
It doesn't vibe with me the older I get. I wish he would do things at like 4 p.m., but for the most part, he's done things earlier in the day, so I'm still staying up for it.
Right, and you know, I'm definitely getting older now, and let me preface this episode because we are going to talk about some free agency moves in the second half of this episode, but first we're going to talk about some, cryptic social media messaging, tweets, and, all that fun stuff that us Bills Mafia fans, Bills Mafia just dive into, like, full-heartedly, like. That's just what we do. Anyways, we're recording this episode on the 22nd of March, and it's about 7:30. So anything that happens after this recording, we wouldn't have gotten to it. So we just got to put that out there right now. In any event, let's talk about some social media stuff real quick. Ed Oliver, man, he has been hot lately on social media, and I think it really started off with like his post like way back in the I think like early March when he said, "Show me the money or I don't even want to talk," something like that. And it kind of was like weird because the Bills picked up his 5th-year options. He's gonna get a good amount of money, and if you're sending this message out, where do you think Ed Oliver's head is at right now, if you're trying to be predictive, Justin?
I think he's more focused on the payment, which, I mean, granted, these are athletes
it's fully
cashing
guaranteed,
in.
too.
Right. For me, we're not even, like, into that part of the offseason if we're already talking contracts. Like, Beane's not going to get this extension done in March, like, maybe after the draft, maybe, but I did see, going into some of his later crypticness, basically rumors that Beane did offer him an extension, but it was a lowball offer, and that's why we're getting into these other posts that we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, for me, I like Ed Oliver. I think he's been a good player, not a great player.
Perfect.
And I'm kind of at the point where if we want to keep him on the roster at that dollar amount as we're trying to make a run, like, fine. But I see this operating the same way it just happened with Edmonds, and how many people are upset right now in Bills Mafia that we let this talented first-round pick in Tremaine Edmonds walk and we got nothing for it. I don't see him and the Bills coming to in agreement on what he thinks he's supposed to get paid. So if he does come back this year, I just see it being another scenario where he walks and we get nothing for it. So if the market's there, I'd be looking to make a move right now.
Yeah, and it's clear that he's ruffling the feathers of Bills Mafia too, because recently he put on his social media that unfortunate game against the Vikings when it's overtime and, we lost, obviously. But he posted a picture of, him on defense, and it was captioned, "Enjoyed myself," knowing that was a heartbreaker of a game. So he's definitely poking at the emotions of this fan base, and I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish. But one thing is clear, and I just got to put it out there. We thought that Stefon Diggs was the most cryptic tweeter out there, and we were trying to read in between the Twitter characters and all that stuff. I feel like this is way straightforward and more clear, and it's just hey, I'm unhappy. And with Stefon Diggs, I feel like he just actually uses Twitter like you're supposed to use it, and that's oh, I have a thought in my head, I'm just gonna blurt it out there, and then people just run with it. With Ed Oliver's tweets, it's just straight up I want money, and I'm going to use this game. And I posted a picture of the game and said I enjoyed myself when it was a heartbreaker for the Bills. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, but it was very intentional with that second photo.
I'm sure you've seen it. I forgot who posted it. It was breaking down what you get from each position group's tweets, and it's linemen are we went out there and we fought hard. It was a good tough game, and then
handshake.
And then it's it moves through to the wide receivers, and it's banana, coconut, bicycle, and I feel like that's what we get with Diggs. I think Diggs just likes to have fun with it and stir the pot.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think that's what we're getting from Ed Oliver. I think this is he's expressing how he feels right now and kind of trying to put some urgency on it, create some sort of leverage to get things done. For what it's worth, in my opinion, I don't think this is a good leverage tactic to move Brandon Beane's needle. I think Brandon Beane has his valuations on players, and if he did in fact make an extension offer to Oliver, that's about what it's going to be. And we saw that just play out with Poyer.
He won't go past his amount.
Beane wasn't going past the amount, and it worked out this time. And honestly, for Oliver's age and all that, I don't think it would be the same situation. I think he would end up going elsewhere. But yeah, like I said, I see if he were on the roster this year, I see it playing out the same as Edmonds did this year. So this is the time of the year if a move is there to be pulled off, it would create another hole, but it's something that if I were running the team, I'd be willing to explore.
Yeah, I definitely think at this point, if you know in the back of your head you're not willing to pay him past a certain amount, and in terms of economics, then you should sell him. Well, I guess trade him in this instance for something that's you are willing to get, So it's I don't know if that makes any sense, because you're going from dollars to draft capital, but in terms of economics, you're supposed to sell something for what you value it for. And I think Brandon Beane definitely can get more than that, considering he has the pedigree of being a top 10 talent. And honestly, Ed Oliver, he's more of a trailer versus the tractor. He needs people around him to be at his best. And for a top 10 draft pick, that's not what you want, especially considering the other defensive tackles that were taken in there. But we spent a good amount on Ed Oliver. Let's talk about something a little more exciting, something that's definitely way more in the gray, and now we're going to talk about, more banana, coconut style.
Talk about tweets. Wide receiver tweets.
Yes. About 48 minutes ago, you see DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins, Nuke, post this photo where he's just sitting in the back of a convertible flexing, and he's got the lyrics to Bob Marley's Buffalo Soldier. And then somebody, I believe the Bills guys, took a screenshot of who DeAndre Hopkins was following, 3 players: Von Miller, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. What?
So I personally, I haven't been a part of other fan bases, so I don't know if this happens elsewhere, but I feel pretty confident that it's at least kind of unique to Buffalo, of like some little things like that happening and then Bills Mafia just running with it. So I don't know if you saw the one. He had a second pitcher that he was in Texas right now, and he was drinking a glass of OJ.
Yeah.
Some orange juice.
OJ.
And people
OJ.
were like, OJ, he's trying to signal Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and like right now, straight up, if you can get DeAndre Hopkins for Ed Oliver, are you doing that?
For all the previous things that I mentioned with Ed Oliver, yeah, straight up, I would do it, and that really is just kind of like a value proposition of, people will be like, DeAndre Hopkins would just be a 1-year rental. Well, at this point, if you're not planning on Oliver being back, he's also a 1-year rental.
That's a great point. I really like how you just put that.
So for me personally, I kind of have this philosophy that I've been working with, that McDermott is this defensive mastermind. He's going to be kind of taking over the defense. That defense is loaded with proven talent, high round draft picks, all that. So for me personally, if we can use one of those assets on defense to give the offense more, I'm doing it. Also, the position that we're at right now with Tremaine Edmonds leaving, and we don't really have that replacement yet, I think would be more beneficial for this defense to get another defensive tackle in there that's for our guy Dean's word, a big hog molly in there. Another guy like Daquan Jones that can eat up space and help Milano and whoever else is playing linebacker next to him.
Keep him clean.
Keep him clean that much more. So for
so
me,
kind of sounds like you just do it.
I would do it. I would also, if you can offer a little bit more and get DeAndre Hopkins and have Ed Oliver still for that 1-year rental, offer whatever. If they're looking for a fourth, offer a third to get them to eat some cap for Hopkins, and you can make it work with both. I'm all for loading up for this run if you can make it make sense, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, it's really kind of going all in, and I don't know if Brandon Beane necessarily is about that, considering the offseason that we've had. And speaking of the offseason, in just a moment, we're going to talk about the most recent transactions that the Buffalo Bills have made in this second wave of free agency. But we got to take a quick break, so stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Bills Vader. Now back to the show.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to finish up the second half of this episode by talking about some transactions that the Buffalo Bills have made here. And I'll admit, Justin, I have been kind of like in and out of like the news world of everything, and I know you're dialed in. So why don't you tell me about the most recent transactions that you've noticed and what your thoughts are?
All right, so since last recording, there was 3 additions for the Bills. The first one being Trent Sherfield coming in from the Dolphins. Bills Mafia remembers him from the punt that went off his
ass.
Behind.
You weren't gonna say ass. You were gonna say backside.
I was gonna say behind.
Okay.
Yeah. So we added him. David Quessenberry comes back to be some offensive line depth for the Bills. And then Damian Harris coming over from New England on a very modest deal. And
$1.7 million.
Yeah, and I'm going to start off talking about Harris because
Yeah.
I was so in love with the idea of Jamal Williams during this process that I got locked into
Wait,
that.
I gotta stop you real quick. So our executive producer Jake put out Justin's top 5 free agent targets, and the Bills rewarded Justin with none of them.
None.
like literally 0. And I was like, damn, guys,
Yeah,
this just shows you how hard it is to be predictive in this league. But I was like, I just saw that that none of that happened. I was like, damn, one of those would have been great.
Any smart football mind will tell you this time of year not to fall in love with any single player, and I'm going to continue doing that every year.
Yeah.
So I was really locked in on Jamal Williams, and Harris was kind of somebody that slipped under my radar because I was so locked in on Jamal. That honestly I think fits this team perfectly. Jamal Williams goes for something like $4 million a year. We get Harris at 1.7, and honestly, for the role that I think he'll have on this team, I think that's a beautiful contract, and you're going to get the same types of contributions from him. I mean, I think he could be anywhere from a short yardage back all the way up to he could be the lead back, and
you know what I think about this? I really like this signing for everything that you just said, but I feel like the Bills were looking for this kind of back with Zach Moss, but Zach Moss, Zach Mossed. More like Zach lost. But and then we got Damian Harris, and if he can stay healthy, which I guess is a little kind of like Zach Moss, but so yeah, let me not talk about Zach Moss anymore. I like this a lot because 1, the money. 2, I think it's a really good fit, especially for the type of run scheme that the Bills do. And 3, it's a different type of skill set than the other 2 running backs that we have. And he's a proven runner in this league, and I really just got to emphasize again, the money is so good. Devin Singletary went to the Texans for $4 million, right? Something along that.
Yeah, some in the ball. I think it was 375, but yeah, something like 4.
Yeah, we got him literally $2 million less, and we got that big bruiser when he's got the ball. He's gonna touch the rock, best believe, and he's great in pass protection too. So I'm really hyped about that. Why don't you talk about the next signing here? But before, all right, wait, I'm sorry. You know that Caesar thing? Where, where the thumb's on the side and is wiggling thumbs up, thumbs down in the middle? Where are you Caesaring the Damian Harris signing? Yeah, I'm giving that a thumbs up. Thumbs up all the way.
For me, it's the different skill set. It's the overwhelming thing for me on this is it's that RB3 that we brought in and the way the roster's kind of shaping out. We've seen that position so many times in the past just be a game day inactive. I'm talking about Matt Breida, TJ Yeldon, blah, 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 blah. We've
Zach
had,
Moss.
Yeah, 5 different guys. I don't see this
Zach
as this
Moss.
type of move. I think he's going to be active every Sunday and he's going to play a role.
Yeah.
And
not Zach Moss.
Yeah, that's a giant factor.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Sherfield.
So I'll wait for my Caesar moment.
Oh yeah, okay.
So this is a guy I like the type of player that we're getting here and what his role is going to be. So just looking at the wide receiver depth, obviously added Deontay Hardy, still have Gabe Davis in the mix. Nuke Hopkins is going to be here in a couple days.
Fuck. Don't mess with me like that.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about a guy that's, that wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, something like that. And he's going to be able to contribute on special teams. So Jake Kumerow's still floating around out there. I think this is the direct replacement for Kumaro. I think it's an upgrade at the position. And I also think he has more like natural receiver talent than Kumaro. He ran something like a 4.4, 4.5 40. He's a big boy he's really good blocking in the run game. So I think you kind of have an upgraded skill set, Jake Kumaro. Obviously, the kick that went off his butt, he was the personal protector in that punt formation, but he's also played gunner. I think you have a guy that's going to contribute in pretty much every area of special teams. And, he was the number 3 receiving target behind Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill last year in Miami. So a guy that does have a receiving skill set as well. I think this is a big win.
Yeah, thumbs up all the way. I think, again, to kind of echo and maybe just add a little bit, Trent Sherfield, third leading receiver for the Dolphins. He comes to the Buffalo Bills, and instantly I think he's a better special teams player than Jake Kumaro with higher upside as a receiver. But I'm kind of like, it doesn't really move the needle too much for me in terms of like wide receiver need. Like, we still need a wide receiver. Like, Gabe Davis is still the number 2. And despite what I might think, or what you might think, or what Justin might think, or any professional, the Bills think that Gabe Davis is a number 2. And I don't know what it is. I'm just not necessarily convinced yet. He's too inconsistent, and I just need a little bit more from him. And I don't know if this signing changes that, right? So you got depth. You got Shakir, Hardy, Sherfield kind of battling out 3-4-5, wide receiver 3-4-5. Like, okay, it's great. I like that, but I just need something more dynamic with number 2. Anyways, let's talk about the last guy here, unless you want to say something.
Yeah, I had one...
You look like you were itching to say something.
Yeah, I had one more thing I wanted to add there.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, to your point, I agree with what you're saying. Not to bite the hand that feeds, but like, that's just, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, so part of what I like about the moves for both Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield here is that I don't think these are moves that preclude you from still making a move at receiver, whether it's, talking about trading for Nuke, whatever. Like, if you're able to land DeAndre Hopkins and, you just sign Sherfield to this deal and you end up cutting him in training camp, it is what it is. I don't see that happening personally, but I also don't think this stops you from drafting a receiver in the top 2-3 rounds. Mm-hmm. I don't think you added these guys, and these guys aren't getting contracts that are $10-15 million a year that you've now handcuffed yourself. I think these were good guys to bring in as competition, to round out depth, to have some special teams, but you didn't put all your eggs in the basket of these guys. There's still room to make a move.
Right. All right, Justin, I really like what you got to say so far. Why don't you take us home by talking about our number 1 guy, the number 1 signing of this offseason, the big homie,
David Quessenberry.
Swing tackle.
Yeah, so this isn't a move that really surprised me. You have a certain amount of free agents out there. The Bills own free agents to start with. That for, offensive line depth, they're going to bring in people that they're, familiar with, comfortable with, that know the scheme, know the system, whatever. He has the positional versatility that they like. Don't be surprised when they bring back Bobby Hart, too. These are just...
Or they can get an actual tight end that can block and
we'll see.
Catch.
Let's not get crazy.
But, Trent Sherfield can block very good. very well. Very good. Wow, that was bad. Very well.
Just put him in line.
Well, I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to like breaking down the X and O's, but I do know that when I listened to the most recent episode of Locked On Bills, where Joe Marino breaks down Trent Sherfield, and Kyle Krabs says, sometimes they would run to the weak side, with Sherfield being the lead blocker, because that's how good of a blocker he is. But, I think the Bills were kind of, and I could be wrong about this, that they were trying to do that with Bobby Hart when they would go jumbo sometimes. But obviously, Bobby Hart was lining in as a tight end, but, Sherfield isn't a tight end. But I'm saying the blocking ability is very good with Sherfield, but you get that added bonus of the fact that, hey, he can actually catch a football, and he's got very good hands.
Yeah, so Sherfield is going to steal Questenberry's moment here again for a second.
Totally sorry, Questenberry. Like, we know who you are.
We gave you a glowing introduction.
You were there last year. You're back. I'm happy for you.
Yeah,
that's essentially it.
So part of what I do like about the Sherfield move, and I'll move back into Questenberry, is that blocking ability. I feel like the Bills' offense last year was kind of obvious. Like, if I'm sitting at home on my couch and I can tell if it's about to be a run play or a pass play, the super smart defensive coordinator knows what's going on too. So I think this is a receiver that you can put out there as
Bobby Hart checks in the game. All right,
the fourth receiver in a one tight end set, and he can block his ass off too. And you can run the ball out of a 4 receiver set. Lots of things to like there. But as far as Questenberry, the thumb stays right in the middle.
Yeah, right in the middle for me too. I agree.
Not mad about it.
Yeah.
I'm not all jazzed up. It's some offensive line depth that we're familiar with.
I agree. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. He's Justin Goddard. You can find him at jgods22. I'm Andrew Chang. You can find me at 2Changs. Again, this is the Wandering Buffalo podcast here on the Buffalo FamBase Network. If you could, like, subscribe, comment, review, it'd be really appreciated. Everything that you do is greatly, greatly valued. But our next episode, hopefully, will be very
full breakdown on DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, maybe a nuke will go off or something. I don't know, but I also thought about I'll talk about this very briefly, very very briefly, even though I just did like the cutout credit thing. I wonder how that dynamic would be if you're DeAndre Hopkins. You walk in, you see Steph. Are you guys having a conversation like, that Spider-Man meme where you're pointing at each other? Like, are you the one or am I the one? Like, how is that going to work? How is that going to roll over with Diggs? And do you think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be cool with being a number 2?
I've already thought of the solution to this. You don't have a number 2 receiver. You just have 2 number 1s, and then you just tell Gabe Davis that he's number 3.
Which would be perfect.
But nobody gets tagged number 2.
Yeah, there's just, I don't know which one's is like the X the number 1 and then the Y. Like, I don't know. Like, you just have 2 X's. Sure, I don't know.
I think that's going to be different in each system. But I mean, ultimately, if Nuke's trying to go after winning one, what you call the position, 1, 2, whatever, I don't think it really matters. But you're also looking at.
They just want to win.
Yeah, and he's also a dude that's 32, and he was playing with Colt McCoy and who else last year, right? So
yeah,
put him with an MVP
here's
quarterback.
the other thing, right? So after you're done, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, after you're done having that conversation with them, do you got to walk up to Trey White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde and go like, "Hey, I'm sorry that I was gonna get you guys like embroidered on like a chain"?
Hell no. He comes in with that video on his phone. He's like, "Y'all remember this?"
I'm going to do that to the other teams this time.
I would come in talking to all that mess and be like, "I'm on your team now. You're welcome. What's up?"
I mean, when I heard that he was going to do that, I was like, wow, this guy sucks. Like, this guy's a grade A asshole. Like, I was fully ready to just like type my little Twitter fingers off, go like, I hate you, DeAndre Hopkins. Not like he would care. He'd just be like, I love it.
He would never see it.
Yeah, he'd be like, this is why I do it. But anyways, like I said, we're the Wandering Buffalo Podcast, part of the Buffalo FamBase Network. You can catch us on pretty much any streaming services and on YouTube. But thanks for listening to this episode, and as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.